The Shire is quiet. The lanterns are glowing. Welcome back to the Hobbit's hideout, where stories grow like leaves on a party tree. Hello, guys. Today we uncover a secret that has slept beneath the roots of memory for ages, untold the true nature of darkness, and why the light always finds a way to shine through. Before we wander the Shire together, let's pause, take a long, deep breath, and let the weight of your day melt away like morning mist on the party tree. You've earned this quiet moment just for you. Imagine the soft grass beneath your feet, the smell of fresh-baked bread in the air. If any part of this tale makes you smile or brings you a sense of home, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Now, let me paint the scene for you. The evening settles over Hobbiton like a well-worn quilt, each fold and crease familiar as a mother's lullaby. You find yourself walking along Bagshot Row as the last golden light filters through the round windows of the hobbit holes, each one glowing like a warm amber jewel set into the hillside. The air carries the mingled scents of wood smoke and apple tart, of fresh-turned earth, and the lingering sweetness of late roses that refuse to surrender to autumn as gentle insistence. Somewhere in the distance, you can hear the gentle murmur of conversation drifting from the Green Dragon Inn, punctuated by the occasional burst of laughter that speaks of ale shared and stories told. Tonight feels different somehow. There's a whisper in the autumn breeze, like the echo of ancient words spoken in forgotten tongues. The very air seems to shimmer with possibility, as if the veil between the everyday world and the realm of deeper mysteries has grown thin as spider silk. You pause beside the old stone bridge that crosses Bywater, listening to the gentle song the stream makes as it flows over smooth pebbles worn round by countless years of patient water. The sound is hypnotic, timeless, speaking of continuity and peace in a language older than words. You've been helping old Mungo Bracegirdle with his late harvest. The stubborn fellow insists on picking every last apple from his ancient orchard, even though winter as breath is already touching the edges of the leaves with fingers of gold and scarlet. Each apple has its story, he told you earlier, his weathered hands gentle as he cradled a particularly perfect specimen. Some ripen early, eager for the sun. Others wait until the very last moment, gathering sweetness from the long, slow days of autumn. All of them matter, every single one. As you make your way toward his property, the familiar path seems to shimmer with an otherworldly quality, as if you're walking not just through the physical landscape, but through layers of time itself. The hedgerows rustle softly with more than just the evening breeze. There's something expectant in their whisper, like the pause before a secret is revealed. You notice how the starlight catches in the spider webs stretched between the brambles, each one a tiny constellation of dewdrops that seem to pulse with their own inner light. The path winds gently upward, following the natural contours of the hill. To your left, the lights of Hobbiton twinkle like earthbound stars each window, telling its own story of families gathered around dinner tables, of pipes being lit beside comfortable fires of children, being tucked into warm beds with tales of brave adventurers and wise wizards dancing in their dreams. To your right, the wild lands stretch away into purple darkness, where ancient trees whisper secrets to the wind and streams, sing lullabies to the stones. Mungo's orchard sits at the very edge of the Shire, where the cultivated lands give way to older, wilder places that remember times before roads and fences divided the world into neat parcels. The apple trees here are gnarled and wise, their roots deep in soil that has known countless seasons of growth and rest, of flowering and fruiting, of the eternal cycle that connects all living things. Some of these trees were already old when Mungo's grandfather was young, and they bear fruit with the concentrated sweetness that comes only from long years of patient growing. As you approach the largest tree, a magnificent old specimen that Mungo calls the grandfather oak, though it's clearly an apple tree of extraordinary size and age, you notice something peculiar. The recent rains have been unusually heavy this autumn. washing away layers of accumulated earth and leaf mold with their persistent attention. Around the massive roots of the great tree, something catches your eye, something that shouldn't be there, something that speaks of hands and purpose rather than the random work of nature. You kneel beside the exposed area, your fingers trembling slightly with excitement as you brush away loose dirt and fallen leaves. Yes, there are definitely worked stones here, fitted together with the precision of ancient craftsmanship. The stones are not rough fieldstone gathered at random, but carefully shaped blocks that speak of skill and intention. They're warm to the touch despite the cool evening air, and they seem to hum with a quiet energy that makes your fingertips tingle, as if you've touched something charged with more than mere mineral substance. The stones are arranged in what appears to be an archway, though most of it remains buried beneath generations of accumulated earth. The visible portions are carved with intricate patterns that seem to shift and flow in the uncertain light, spirals and interlacing, lines that remind you somehow of the way water moves over stones or the way wind patterns through tall grass. There's something hypnotic about these carvings, something that draws the eye and holds it, as if they're trying to communicate in a language that bypasses words entirely. Working carefully, reverently even, you clear away more soil, following the line of stones as they curve downward into the earth. Your movements disturb small creatures, beetles and earthworms going about their quiet business of returning fallen things to the soil, and you pause to let them find new hiding places before continuing your gentle excavation. There's something sacred about this work, something that demands patience and respect. Soon, you've uncovered what appears to be the top of an archway, an entrance of some kind, sealed with a single large stone that bears an inscription in flowing script. The letters seem to dance and shimmer in the starlight, flowing like water or flame, never quite holding still long enough for your eyes to grasp them completely. Yet as you trace them with your finger, feeling the slight depression where some ancient craftsman carved them with infinite care, you find you can somehow read them as if the meaning flows directly into your understanding, without passing through the usual channels of sight and comprehension. Here rest the words that must not be forgotten, lest the shadow return to claim what light remains. Enter, friend of growing things, and learn what the earth remembers when the minds of mortals fail. The sealed stone is loose, held in place more by time and ceremony than by any mortar. As you gently work it free, using a fallen branch as a lever, and taking care not to damage either the stone or its ancient setting, a warm breeze flows out from the hidden chamber beyond. This is not the stale air you might expect from a long sealed space, but something living and fresh, carrying scents of old parchment and dried, herbs of cedar wood, and something else, something that reminds you of the smell of the air just before dawn, full of possibility and promise. You fetch the lantern from Mungo's tool shed. He won't mind, you're sure, especially for such a discovery as this. The old man has always been one to appreciate mysteries and marvels, often claiming that the Shire holds more secrets than most folk suspect. The lantern is well maintained, filled with clear oil that burns with a steady, bright flame. As you adjust the wick and test the light, shadows dance across the exposed stonework, making the carved patterns seem even more alive and fluid. Returning to the entrance, you hold the lantern high and peer into the opening you've revealed. Beyond the threshold lies a small circular chamber carved directly into the living rock beneath the great tree's roots. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. Every surface has been shaped with loving care, and though the chamber is clearly ancient, there's no sense of decay or abandonment. Instead, it feels like a place that has been patiently waiting, maintained by some power beyond the reach of ordinary time. The walls are lined with shelves carved directly from the stone, and upon those shelves rest scrolls and books, bound in leather that still smells faintly of the tanning oils used centuries ago. Some of the volumes are small and delicate, bound in soft doeskin dyed in colors that seem to glow with their own inner light. Others are massive tomes that would require both hands to lift, their covers adorned with metal clasps and hinges that gleam like gold in the lantern light. In the center of the chamber stands a simple wooden reading stand, carved from what appears to be a single piece of heartwood from some great tree. The grain of the wood flows like water frozen in time, and the surface has been polished to a warm, honeyed sheen that speaks of countless hands that have rested upon it over the years. Upon the stand lies an open book, as if someone had just stepped away from their studies, with every intention of returning momentarily. You duck through the entrance, marveling at how the chamber seems larger inside than it appeared from without. This is more than mere optical illusion. There's something about the proportions, the way the curved walls seem to extend further than they should. The way the domed ceiling rises higher than the space above ground would seem to allow. The lantern light dances across the carved walls, revealing intricate patterns that seem to tell stories in a language of pure form and movement. The carvings are more elaborate here than those on the entrance stone, covering every available surface with flowing designs that speak of deep harmony between the made and the grown. There are images of trees whose branches become rivers, rivers that flow into spirals that become stars, stars that shine down on gardens where flowers grow into musical notes that dance away into patterns of wind and weather. And throughout all these images, threading through them like a dark vein through marble, runs a recurring motif, a simple ring that seems to draw all other images toward it, like a whirlpool draws water. But these darker images are balanced, even overwhelmed by others. Scenes of people gathered around hearth fires, sharing tales and songs. Children playing in meadows, filled with flowers that seem to sing with color hands, working earth with tools that gleam like silver bread, rising in ovens that glow like small suns. The overall effect is of a world in balance, where shadow serves only to make the light more precious, where difficulty exists only to make joy more sweet. The book on the reading stand is bound in deep green leather, its surface soft as velvet beneath your fingers. The pages are made of vellum, so fine it seems almost translucent, yellowed slightly with age, but still supple and strong. The text is written in the same flowing script as the doorway inscription, and as you begin to read, the words seem to whisper themselves directly into your understanding, bypassing your eyes entirely and speaking straight to your heart. I am Aldener of the Woodland Realm, keeper of memories and watcher of signs. In this place of growing things, beneath the roots of wisdom, I set down these words for those who will come after, when the shadow has passed, but its lessons must not be forgotten. For I have seen the true curse of the Ring of Power, and it is not what the stories tell. You settle into the chamber a single chair, a simple piece crafted from living wood that still bears traces of bark on its arms and legs, as if it grew rather than was made. The seat is worn smooth by countless readers, shaped by their presence into a perfect cradle for contemplation. As you adjust the lantern to cast its light more evenly across the page, you notice that other lights seem to join it, a soft phosphorescence from the stone walls themselves, as if the very rock remembers the sun that once shone on the hillside above. Men speak of the ring's power to corrupt, to bend the will and darken the heart, the text continues. This is true, but it is only the surface of a deeper poison, like the foam on a river that conceals the swift current beneath. The ring's greatest curse is not what it adds to the world, but what it takes away. In the presence of its influence, colors fade from bright to gray to the memory of color. Music loses its sweetness, becoming mere noise organized by rules rather than joy. The taste of bread becomes as ash in the mouth, and the laughter of children grows thin and hollow, like wind through empty houses. You pause in your reading, noticing how even here, in this sacred sanctuary, the very mention of such darkness seems to dim the lantern's glow slightly. The shadows in the corners seem to deepen, and for a moment, you feel a chill that has nothing to do with the autumn air above. But then you remember the warmth of Mongo's kitchen this morning, the sound of your friends' voices at the Green Dragon just hours ago, the feeling of soft earth beneath your bare feet on summer mornings, and the light grows strong again, as if fed by these memories of simple joy. I have walked in lands where the ring's shadow fell, the ancient scribe continues, and I have seen how it drains the world of wonder, not through great acts of evil, though those too inspires in hearts already darkened by despair, but through the slow leaching away of joy, like water seeping from a cracked vessel. Where the ring's influence spreads strongest, flowers bloom without fragrance, their petals perfect in form, but empty of the essence that makes them flowers rather than mere colored paper. Stars shine without inspiring poetry, becoming nothing more than distant suns that mark the passage of time. Lovers meet without feeling the quickening of their hearts, their union becoming contract rather than celebration. The words send a chill through you that goes deeper than mere cold, a recognition of something you then never experienced, but somehow understand. You think of the stories you've heard of the dark times, when shadow fell across the world and hope grew thin as winter ice. But even in those stories, there were always those who kept the light alive, the resistance that came not from armies and strategies, but from the simple refusal to let beauty die completely. The ring does not seek merely to dominate, you read on, for domination is only its means, not its end. Its true purpose is far more insidious. It seeks to make domination the only thing that matters. It whispers that power is the sole currency of worth, that beauty serves no purpose beyond attracting that which can be possessed, that love is weakness that leaves one vulnerable to those who have chosen strength over softness. And so, gradually, inexorably, it transforms the world into a place where only power has meaning, where all other experiences fade to gray shadows of themselves. You turn the page, and here the script changes, more hurried, as if written in urgency or fear. The ink is darker too, and in places it seems to have been blotted by tears or rain. There's something desperate in these words, something that speaks of knowledge gained at terrible cost. But I have discovered something that even the Dark Lord himself may not fully understand, for how could one who has forgotten love comprehend its true nature? The ring's power to drain joy and wonder from the world has a weakness, a blind spot as vast as its arrogance. It cannot touch what is freely given and received in love. A meal shared with friends, prepared not for display or profit, but for the simple pleasure of nourishing those we care for. This exists outside the ring's reach. A song sung without thought or reward, rising from the heart, for no reason beyond the joy of making music. This it cannot contaminate. A flower picked simply because its beauty brings a moment of happiness, given to another for no purpose save the delight of giving. This remains pure no matter how dark the world around it may become. As you read these words, you become intensely aware of sounds from outside the chamber, the soft hooting of an owl calling to its mate, the whisper of wind through leaves that rustle like silk, the distant sound of water flowing over stones worn smooth by countless years of patient persistence. These sounds seem more vivid, more present than they did before, as if the ancient scribe's words have awakened your senses to their true richness and complexity. There is something musical in the way these natural sounds weave together, the owl's call providing a bass note, the leaves adding percussion, the stream contributing a melody that rises and falls like breathing. It's as if the world itself is singing, and you've only just learned how to listen. You wonder how many times you've heard these same sounds without really hearing them, walking through a symphony without noticing the music. This is why the Shire proved so resistant to the ring's corruption. The text continues, and now you can hear pride and wonder in the ancient words. Not because hobbits are immune to power as a lure, for they are as subject to greed and jealousy as any folk, but because they have built their lives around the very things the ring cannot touch. They plant gardens not for profit, but for the joy of watching things grow, of seeing seeds transform into flowers and fruit through the patient alchemy of sun and rain and time. They prepare feasts not to display wealth, but to share abundance with friends, understanding instinctively that food tastes better when enjoyed in company. They tell stories not to preserve history or convey information, but to delight in the telling and the hearing, to share the human experience of wonder and fear and hope. You find yourself smiling as you read, thinking of your own neighbors and their cheerful obsessions with meals and gardens and comfortable chairs. How often had you heard visitors comment on the Hobbit's simple priorities, sometimes with gentle mockery, sometimes with puzzled affection, never quite understanding that this simplicity was actually a profound wisdom. The Shire's emphasis on small pleasures and daily comforts wasn't a limitation or a lack of ambition. It was a recognition of what truly matters, a deliberate choice to build a life around joy rather than achievement. The next section of the book is written in yet another hand, though the style and the quality of the vellum suggest it was added not much later than the original text. The handwriting is more confident, less hurried, as if written at a time of peace rather than crisis. Aldener spoke truly, though he did not live to see the ring's destruction or witness the great healing that followed. I, Merileth of the Grey Havens, add these words in the days after the Shadow's passing, when the ship still sailed west and the memory of darkness was fresh in every heart. We have seen how the ring's defeat restored color to the world, not through magic, though magic played its part, but through the simple act of removing that which drained it away. The grass seems greener now, the sky more blue, not because they have changed in any fundamental way, but because we can see them clearly again, as if a gray veil has been lifted from our eyes. You pause in your reading, setting the book gently aside for a moment to absorb what you've learned so far. The chamber around you seems to pulse with quiet life, the stone walls warm with the memory of the craftsman's hands that shaped them, the air sweet with the breath of growing things, the very space itself charged with the accumulated presence of all those who have sat in this chair. Read these words and carry their wisdom back into the world above. Through the entrance, you can see stars twinkling between the leaves of the great oak, each one a tiny lamp lit against the vast darkness of night. But the darkness doesn't seem threatening now. It seems companionable, restful, like the darkness of a bedroom where loved ones sleep safely. The night is full of small sounds and subtle movements, the busy life of creatures who find in darkness not terror, but opportunity, shelter, peace. When you return to the book, you find a passage that makes your heart quicken with recognition, as if you're reading about something you've always known, but never quite been able to put into words. But the greatest wisdom preserved in these pages is this: the ring's true defeat came not through the strength of armies or the wisdom of the wise, though both played their parts in the great symphony of resistance. Its defeat came through the courage of the small and supposedly insignificant, and this courage was not the courage of warriors facing death in battle, traumatic though such courage may be. It was the courage of simple souls who chose to preserve joy in the face of despair, who continued to plant gardens when the world seemed ending, who shared their bread when they had little to spare, who sang lullabies to their children, even when the night was filled with terrors. The text goes on to describe how even in the darkest days of the war against Shadow, there were those who maintained what the author calls islands of unmarked joy, places where children still played games passed down through generations, where people still gathered to share meals and stories, where the daily rituals of life continued unchanged. These islands, the writer suggests, were what allowed the world to remember how to be whole again once the Shadow passed. In the markets of Bree, when fear stalked the streets and trust became a luxury few could afford, there was still old Widow Thornby who gave away soup to any who looked hungry, asking no questions and expecting no payment. In the forests of Lothlorien, when every shadow might hide an enemy, the Malern trees still bloomed in their season, and the elves still paused in their vigilance to appreciate their beauty. In the halls of the Mark, when war seemed endless and hope grew thin, mothers still sang the old songs to quiet their babies, and those songs carried more power against despair than all the swords in Rohan. As the evening deepens around you, you find yourself settling more comfortably into the ancient chair, The lantern burns with steady warmth, and the words on the page seem to glow with their own gentle light, as if they're not merely ink on vellum, but living thoughts that have taken visible form. You're beginning to understand why this chamber was created, why these words were preserved in secret beneath the roots of a living tree, why they were left for someone like you to find. The next section of the book contains what appears to be a collection of observations gathered from many sources over many years. Each entry is brief, but together they paint a picture of a world rediscovering its capacity for simple pleasure. From the markets of Brie, the bread tastes sweeter now, though we use the same recipe we always have. Perhaps it is because we have remembered to be grateful for grain and yeast and the patient work of ovens. From the vineyards of the South, the wine sings on the tongue as it did in my grandfather's day. The grapes have not changed, but we have learned again to taste with our hearts as well as our mouths. From the gardens of Minas Tirith, the roses have remembered how to be fragrant, or perhaps we have remembered how to stop long enough to smell them. From the farms of Rohan, the horses run with joy again, not merely with speed. They know, as we are learning, that the destination matters less than the spirit of the journey. From the Shire itself, the Green Dragon's ale tastes exactly as it always did, but somehow it brings more laughter now. We had forgotten, I think, that the point of drinking together is not the drinking, but the together. Each entry is like a small jewel, polished by observation and set into the larger pattern of the book's wisdom. You realize you're reading a record of healing, not just from war, but from a deeper wound that most people never even knew they carried. The ring's influence had been so subtle, so gradual, that its lifting was like the end of a headache. You'd grown so accustomed to that. You'd forgotten what it felt like to be without pain. The text continues with what seems to be a philosophical meditation, written in yet another hand, this one flowing and elegant, as if the writer had all the time in the world to consider each word. We have learned that there are two kinds of power in the world, and understanding the difference between them is perhaps the most important wisdom any soul can gain. There is the power that seeks to control, to possess, to bend all things to its will. This power grows by taking land, taking treasure, taking the freedom and joy and very lives of others. It is a hungry power, never satisfied, always demanding more, for it is based on the illusion that happiness comes from having rather than being. But there is another power, quieter but infinitely stronger, like the difference between a roaring fire that consumes everything it touches, and the steady warmth of banked coals that can burn for days without fuel. This is the power that seeks to nurture, to create, to share. This power grows by giving comfort to the sorrowful, giving beauty to the world, giving love without thought of return. It is a generous power, always multiplying, always creating more than it consumes. For it is based on the truth that joy shared is joy doubled, while joy hoarded withers and dies. You find yourself nodding as you read, thinking of how the Shire operates on this second kind of power, how Hobbit society thrives not because anyone rules with an iron fist, but because everyone contributes what they can and takes what they need. How disputes are settled not through force, but through patient conversation over many cups of tea, with the understanding that maintaining relationships matters more than being right. How celebration is a community effort, with each family contributing something to the common joy. The ring represented the first kind of power taken to its ultimate extreme, the text explains. It sought not merely to control the actions of others, but to control their very capacity for joy, their ability to find meaning in anything beyond the accumulation of power itself. For a heart that can still find delight in a sunset, or comfort in the taste of honey, or wonder in the sound of rain on leaves, such a heart cannot be completely enslaved. It retains something that lies beyond the reach of domination, something that says, no matter what you take from me, you cannot take this. As you read these words, you're struck by a sudden understanding of why you were drawn to discover this hidden chamber tonight. The knowledge preserved here isn't just historical curiosity. It has practical wisdom for any time. When darkness threatens to overwhelm the light, when the forces of control and possession seem stronger than those of love and creation. The book's next section appears to be written in a different hand entirely, and the style suggests it was added much later, perhaps years or even decades after the original text. The ink is fresher, the parchment whiter, as if someone had come to this chamber long after its creation to add their own piece to the growing collection of wisdom. For those who find these words in times yet to come know this: the ring was destroyed, melted in the fires. Where it was forged, its power broken and scattered to the winds. But the choice it represented was not destroyed, for it lives in every human heart in every generation. The choice between the power that takes and the power that gives, between the satisfaction that comes from controlling others and the joy that comes from serving them, between the security of walls and the adventure of bridges. In every generation, in every heart, the same choice arises. Will you seek the power that diminishes others to elevate yourself, or the power that lifts others and finds itself lifted in return? Will you measure your worth by what you can control, or by what you can nurture? Will you let the fear of loss drain the color from your world, or will you dare to find joy even in uncertainty, beauty even in impermanence, love even in the face of eventual parting? The words seem to speak directly to you, sitting here in this quiet chamber while the world sleeps peacefully above. You think of your own life, your own choices, your own moments of deciding whether to grasp tightly or hold lightly, whether to build walls or plant gardens, whether to hoard joy or share it freely. How many times have you chosen fear over love, control over trust, having over being? The text continues with what feels like a personal letter, intimate and warm. I write these words by candlelight while my grandchildren sleep in the room above, their dreams filled with tales of dragons and treasure and brave heroes. Tomorrow, I will teach them to bake the honey cakes their grandmother loved, not because the recipe is particularly important, but because the sharing of it is. I will show them how to listen for the different songs the wind makes in different trees, the whisper through willow leaves, the rustle through oak, the singing through pine needles. Not because this knowledge will make them wealthy or powerful, but because it will make them rich in the only currency that truly matters, the ability to find wonder in the world around them. You smile at this, imagining the scene, an elder passing on not information, but attention, not facts, but the capacity to notice and appreciate the subtle beauties that surround us always. How different the world would be if such teaching were common. If children learned as early as they learned to walk, that joy is not something to be earned or achieved, but something to be noticed. That beauty is not a luxury for the wealthy, but a gift freely available to anyone with eyes to see. The ring's greatest lie was that these small joys don't matter, that they are distractions from the serious business of acquiring power and security and status. But we who lived through its shadow and emerged into light again know better. These small joys are not distractions from what matters. They are what matters. They are the reason all else is worth defending, the foundation upon which every worthwhile life is built. What good is safety if it comes at the cost of wonder? What profit is there in winning if the victory leaves you unable to enjoy what you've won? The ring promised its bearers that they would gain the whole world, but its true gift was to make the whole world seem worthless, a bargain that reveals its own emptiness to anyone with the wisdom to see. The lantern flame flickers gently, and you realize the oil is beginning to run low. But rather than feeling hurried, you feel peaceful, as if the natural rhythm of the evening is guiding you toward the perfect moment to finish this ancient conversation. The chamber seems to grow more luminous as the lantern dims, as if the stones themselves are contributing their own gentle radiance to help you complete your reading. The book's final major section is written in the same hand as the first, though the ink appears different, darker and richer, as if mixed with something precious. The writing here has a ceremonial quality, like words spoken at a great occasion. I, Aldener, add these final words in the last year of my life, having seen the shadow rise and fall, and the world made new. My hair is white now, my hands shake as I write, but my heart is fuller than it was in the days of my youth for. I have learned what cannot be taught, but only discovered through living, that every ending is also a beginning, every loss also a gift, every shadow proof that light exists. To you who read this in times of peace, treasure that peace, not with the desperate clinging of those who fear its loss, but with the grateful appreciation of those who understand its true worth. Build your days around small beauties and simple pleasures. Share your bread freely. Sing without thought of audience. Plant flowers that you may never see bloom. These acts may seem insignificant, but they are the threads from which the fabric of a meaningful life is woven. To you who read this in times of struggle, remember that even the smallest light drives back the darkness. The candle in your window, the song in your heart, the kindness in your words. These are not merely defenses against the shadow, but active forces that push it back, that reclaim territory for joy and wonder and love. Do not wait for great opportunities to make a difference. Make a difference in small ways, moment by moment, choice by choice. The ring taught us that power over others is ultimately empty, but it also taught us, by contrast, that the power to bring joy to others is the only power worth possessing. The tyrant sits alone on his throne, feared but not loved, obeyed but not trusted. But the gardener who shares his harvest, the baker who gives bread to the hungry, the storyteller who brightens a child's evening, these are the true rulers of the world, for they rule over willing hearts. As you near the end of the ancient book, the words seem to take on a dreamlike quality, as if they're being spoken directly into your heart, rather than read by your eyes. The boundaries between yourself and the text seem to dissolve, and you feel connected not just to the long-dead scribes who wrote these words, but to all the readers who have sat in this chair, before you all who will sit here. After you re-gone, let the stars remind you that beauty needs no purpose beyond itself. They shine not because they must, but because shining is their nature. Let the taste of water remind you that the simplest gifts are often the most precious. What price would you pay for water if you were dying of thirst? Let the warmth of friendship remind you that love shared is the only treasure that multiplies when divided. Give your heart away and find it comes back doubled. These truths the ring could never touch, and these truths will outlast every ring of power that may yet be forged. For they are not based on having or holding or controlling, but simply on being present to the miracle of existence itself. They require no skill except attention, no wealth except appreciation, no power except the willingness to let yourself be delighted by the world. The final page contains only a few lines, written in letters that seem to shimmer with their own gentle light, as if inked with starlight and moonbeams. Sleep now, dear reader, and dream of gardens growing in the dark. Sleep, and know that morning comes, as it always has, as it always will. Sleep, and let your dreams be filled with the sound of laughter, the scent of flowers, the taste of hope. For these are the weapons that defeated the ring, and these are the gifts that will light your way home. Remember, you are not here to be perfect, but to be present. You are not here to achieve greatness, but to recognize the greatness in small things. You are not here to possess the world, but to be possessed by wonder at its beauty. Sleep well, and wake tomorrow ready to choose joy. As you close the ancient book with reverent hands, the lantern gives one last gentle flicker and goes out. But rather than feeling lost in darkness, you feel embraced by the warm, living dark of the chamber. This is not the darkness of absence, but of presence, the darkness of rich earth from which flowers grow, of night skies from which stars shine, of the space between heartbeats that makes the rhythm precious. Above you, the roots of the great oak whisper their ancient songs, speaking in the language of growth and patience and endurance. Through the entrance, starlight filters down like silver dust, and you can hear the distant sound of water flowing over stones, eternal and comforting. The chamber itself seems to breathe around you, filled with the accumulated presence of all who have sought and found wisdom here. You sit quietly for a long moment, letting the words you've read settle into your heart like seeds in fertile ground. The true curse of the ring, you now understand, was not that it made people evil, but that it made them forget what was good. It didn't create darkness so much as drain away light, didn't add suffering so much as subtract joy, and its defeat came not through the triumph of good over evil in some great battle, but through the quiet persistence of ordinary people who refused to let their capacity for joy be taken from them. The chamber holds countless other books, you realize, each one probably containing its own treasures of wisdom and wonder. But you sense that tonight's reading is complete, that you've been given exactly what you needed to understand. There will be other nights, other discoveries, other moments of illumination. Tonight, the gift is understanding. Tomorrow, the gift will be living that understanding in the world above. As you carefully replace the book on its stand, positioning it exactly as you found it, you notice something you hadn't seen before. Carved into the wall, beside the reading stand, barely visible in the fading starlight that filters through the entrance, are words in the common tongue, simple and clear. The ring is gone, but the choice remains. Will you choose joy? Below these words, carved in different hands over what must have been many years, are responses from other readers who have sat where you sit now. I choose wonder. Signed with a simple flower symbol, I choose to share rather than hoard. Marked with intertwined hands, I choose to plant tomorrow's shade today. Accompanied by the image of a small tree, I choose love again and again, no matter the cost. Sealed with a heart, I choose to see beauty in broken things. Illustrated with a cracked pot from which a vine grows, you realize this chamber is not just a repository of ancient wisdom, but a living tradition. A place where each generation adds its voice to the ongoing conversation about what it means to choose. Light over shadow growth, over decay connection, over isolation. Your own understanding feels suddenly both deeply personal and part of something much larger than yourself. You emerge from the chamber into the starlit night, moving slowly, reluctant to break the spell of wonder that surrounds you like a gentle cloak. The transition from the timeless space below to the temporal world above feels gradual, dreamlike, as if you're surfacing from very deep water into air that tastes of possibility and promise. Carefully, reverently, you replace the stone that seals the entrance. The earth settles naturally around it, helped by your gentle hands arranging fallen leaves and loose soil until the entrance is hidden once again. But you carry its wisdom with you as you make your way back through the orchard, past the sleeping hobbit holes, toward your own warm bed. The secret rests in your heart now, safe and growing like a seed in spring earth. The night air tastes sweeter than you remember each breath, carrying flavors you somehow missed before. The green scent of grass, heavy with dew, the spicy fragrance of late-blooming herbs, the rich earthiness of soil preparing for winter's rest. Each star seems to shine with its own distinct personality, some bright and bold, others gentle and shy, all of them part of the vast symphony of light that turns darkness into beauty rather than fear. The distant sound of the bywater flowing over stones is like a gentle lullaby, speaking of continuity and change, of water that is always the same and always different, always flowing toward the sea, yet always present in this moment. Even the soft sound of your own footsteps on the grass seems musical, part of the great composition that is a world at peace with itself. As you walk, you find yourself noticing things that were always there, but somehow invisible before. The way moonlight catches in a spider's web stretched between fence posts, turning it into a mandala of silver threads. The sound a moth makes as it passes close to your ear, a whisper of wings that speaks of nighttime adventures in a world parallel to the daytime one you know so well. The way shadows fall, not as absence of light, but as presence of mystery, creating spaces where imagination can flourish. You wonder if the world has actually changed, or if you're simply seeing it more clearly now, freed from some subtle shadow you hadn't even known you carried. Perhaps this is what the ancient book meant about the ring-cess defeat, restoring color to the world. Not that the colors themselves changed, but that people remembered how to see them, how to be present to the endless small miracles that surround every moment of existence. As you reach your own round door, painted green and cheerful in the starlight, you pause to look back over the Shire. From this small hill, you can see the gentle landscape spread out below you like a patchwork quilt made of moonlight and shadow. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird calls to its mate, and the sound is answered from across the valley, a conversation in a language that speaks directly to the heart without need of translation. In the windows of scattered hobbit holes, warm lights glow like earthbound stars, each one representing a family gathered around their own hearth, sharing their own small portion of the world's vast store of contentment. Some windows are dark, now their occupants already deep in dreams, but even these seem to glow with the peaceful presence of those who sleep secure, in the knowledge that they are home, that they are loved, that tomorrow will bring its own small gifts of wonder and connection. You think of the ring, that symbol of ultimate power, and how it was defeated not by strength or wisdom, but by the simple refusal of ordinary people to let go of extraordinary love. You think of Frodo and Sam, of course, but also of all the unnamed gardeners and bakers and storytellers who kept tending their small plots of joy, even when the world seemed ending. The innkeeper who continued to serve warm meals, the mother who still sang lullabies, the old man who went on feeding birds, even when he could barely feed himself. Inside your own cozy hobbit hole, you prepare for sleep with a heart fuller than it was when the day began. You light a single candle and place it in the window, not for any particular reason, just because its warm glow pleases you, just because it adds one more small light to the constellation of lights that makes the Shire beautiful at night. The flame dances in the gentle draft, alive and vital, a tiny sun brought indoors to chase away the darkness. As you settle into your comfortable bed, pulling the soft quilts up to your chin, you can hear the whisper of wind in the apple trees outside your window. You imagine you can still smell the faint scent of ancient wisdom that lingered in that hidden chamber, mingling now with the familiar sense of home. Lavender from the sachets in your linen chest, the lingering aroma of this evening's soup, the clean smell of sheets dried in sunshine and fresh air. The true curse of the ring, you realize as sleep begins to take you, was that it made people forget that they had always possessed everything they truly needed. It convinced them that happiness was something to be acquired through effort and strategy, rather than something to be noticed in the present moment. It made them believe that joy was a reward for achievement, rather than a choice available in any circumstance. That love was something to be earned, rather than something to be shared freely. But here in the Shire, surrounded by people who plant gardens just to watch them grow, and bake extra cakes just to give them away, the ring's curse could never quite take hold. The hobbits had built their entire culture around the recognition that the best things in life are not things at all, but experiences shared with others, moments of connection that cost nothing but attention and generosity. As your thoughts grow softer and more dreamlike, you find yourself imagining all the hidden chambers that might exist throughout Middle-earth, all the wisdom preserved in secret places, waiting for those with eyes to see and hearts to understand. Perhaps there are scrolls hidden in the roots of the party tree itself, or books sealed in caves beside the Grey Havens, all containing pieces of the same essential truth, that the power that matters most is the power to love, to create, to nurture, to share. Maybe there's a chamber beneath every great tree, you think sleepily, each one holding the accumulated wisdom of its particular place and time. The Malern trees of Lothlorien might shelter books written in silver ink that glows by starlight. The white trees of Gondor might protect scrolls that smell of sea spray and hope. The great trees of Fangorn might guard books written in the slow, deep language of the Ents, containing the memories of ages beyond mortal reckoning. And perhaps it doesn't matter whether such chambers actually exist, because the wisdom they would contain is already present in the world around you, written in the language of growing things and flowing water, of changing seasons and unchanging stars. The real library is the world itself, and every person who chooses joy over fear, love over power, sharing over hoarding, adds a new page to its endless collection of wonders. The night deepens around you, and your breathing grows slow and steady. In your mind's eye, you see the great oak in Mungo's orchard, its roots, reaching deep into the earth where ancient wisdom waits in patient silence, its branches stretching toward the stars that have watched over countless generations of joy and sorrow, growth and rest. Somewhere in its embrace, that small chamber holds its precious books, and those books hold their eternal wisdom, waiting for the next seeker to discover that the greatest treasures are hidden, not in dragon hoards or royal vaults, but in the simple choice to find delight in an ordinary day. The stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns, following paths that were old when the world was young, constant in their movement yet eternal in their message. That beauty persists, that light endures, that there is always something worth celebrating in the mere fact of existence. The night wind carries the scent of growing things, grass preparing for winter's rest, trees drawing their sap down into patient roots, flowers setting seeds that will bloom in springs yet to come. And as sleep finally claims you completely, you dream of gardens growing in the dark, tended by invisible hands that ask nothing in return for their labor except the joy of nurturing life. You dream of bread rising in warm ovens while the world sleeps, prepared by bakers who understand that true wealth is measured not in gold, but in the number of people you have fed. You dream of friends gathering around glowing hearths to share stories and songs, their laughter weaving spells more powerful than any magic ring. You dream of the Shire eternal and peaceful, where the only power that matters is the power to make others smile, where every sunset is a masterpiece painted for an audience of one, where every friendship is a treasure that grows richer with sharing. You dream of a world where kindness is strength, where gentleness is courage, where the willingness to be vulnerable is recognized as the bravest act of all. In your dreams, you understand at last what the ancient books were trying to tell you, that the ring as true curse was the belief that such moments of simple joy do and matter, and its true defeat was the proof that they are the only things that do. For in the end, what good is all the power in the world if it cannot bring a single moment of genuine happiness? What profit is there in ruling everything if you can enjoy nothing? The ring promised its bearers that they would possess the world, but its real gift was to make the world seem worthless, a bargain that reveals its own emptiness to anyone with the wisdom to see. True possession comes not from owning, but from appreciating, not from controlling, but from connecting, not from having, but from being fully present to what is already here. And what is already here, you realize in the depths of sleep, is everything. The taste of water when you're thirsty, the warmth of sunlight on your face, the sound of a friend's voice calling your name, the sight of flowers blooming wild beside the road. These gifts require no effort to earn, no strategy to win, no power to claim. They are freely given to anyone with the grace to notice them, the wisdom to receive them, the generosity to share them with others. The Shire sleeps around you, and you sleep within the Shire, cradled by the same peace that has blessed this land for countless generations. Tomorrow, there will be gardens to tend, and meals to share, and friends to visit. There will be small acts of kindness that ripple outward like stones thrown into still water, each one creating circles of effect that touch shores far beyond what the giver can imagine. There will be laughter around dinner tables, where stories are told not for their moral lessons, but for the sheer pleasure of telling and hearing. There will be songs by firelight that make the heart remember what it means to be alive. There will be the simple pleasure of watching clouds drift across an endless sky, of feeling rain on your skin, of sharing a look of understanding with a stranger who becomes, in that moment, a friend. These are the things the ring could never touch. You realize in the deep wisdom of dreams. And these are the things that will continue long after every ring of power has crumbled to dust. For they are not based on having or holding or controlling, but simply on being present to the miracle of existence itself. They require no skill except attention, no wealth except appreciation, no power except the willingness to let yourself be delighted by the world. And so you sleep, dear traveler, with the taste of ancient wisdom on your lips and the sound of eternal truth in your ears. Sleep and dream of all the ways that love defeats power, not through conquest, but through the simple act of making conquest unnecessary. Sleep and know that you carry within yourself everything needed to keep the darkness at bay, not through force or strategy, but through the gentle persistence of joy. For you have learned the secret that the ring could never understand, that true wealth cannot be taken, true power cannot be hoarded, and true joy cannot be contained. These gifts multiply when shared, strengthen when given away, and endure long after their givers have passed into legend. They are the inheritance of every soul brave enough to choose love over fear, wonder over cynicism, hope over despair. The night holds you gently, like a mother holding a sleeping child, and the stars sing their silent songs of encouragement and blessing. Somewhere beneath an ancient oak, a chamber full of wisdom waits for the next seeker to discover that the most important truths have been hiding in plain sight all along, disguised as ordinary miracles and everyday wonders. Sleep now, and let your dreams be filled with the sound of water flowing over stones, carrying away all that is heavy and leaving only what is light. Dream of gardens where every flower blooms in its own time, where every fruit ripens at its own pace, where the patient earth provides all that is needed for growth and joy and the quiet satisfaction of work well done. Dream of the Shire, where every sunset is a gift freely given, where every friendship is a treasure freely shared, where every day brings its own small portion of the world's vast store of beauty. Dream of home, and know that home is not a place, but a feeling, not a destination, but a way of being in the world with open hands and an open heart. And dream, finally, of morning, for morning always comes, bringing with it new light, new chances, new opportunities to choose joy over sorrow, hope over fear, love over power. Dream of tomorrow's sunrise painting the sky in colors that have no names, and know that you will be there to see it, ready to begin again the ancient, eternal work of finding wonder in an ordinary world. Until our paths cross again beneath the party tree, may your dreams be filled with starlight and your heart with the quiet peace of knowing that you are exactly where you belong. Thank you for sharing this quiet moment with me tonight, dear traveler. The Shire is always here, waiting to welcome you home.